Hello and welcome. It is the 6 o'clock club. Hi, I'm Andy from Twisted Narrative, and Jack is here. There's all sorts of nice images. Oh yeah,
I I
yeah.
am. I am.
He's
Hello.
been
I'm having some level of technical difficulties, but I think
captured
I.
by aliens.
Yes.
I've been captured by aliens. So I don't think you need any more introductions, but introduce yourself.
Hello. Yes. My name is Jack. I'm clearly having some technical issues, but I think my microphone is still very much working. Long time player with Andy, and just happy to be here again for I think the
Yeah.
third time now.
You might have to do something with your camera because it is
Yeah,
glitching, and if
it is.
anybody's um, sort of light sensitive, it might trigger them. But whilst you play around with that, we'll start conversations. So first and foremost, hello and welcome to the 6 o'clock club. Um, what we normally do first off is talk about last night's game. And last night's game was the Fortunes Untold. It had Felicity. It had. It's okay, Jack. If just play around with it. Had
I'm
Felicity. It
gonna.
had James. It had Adrian, and it had Roz in. So a full group of adventurers. I believe they're 6th level at the moment. It was Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. And as I mentioned earlier, they um, yeah, it's
Yes, we're not doing well. It was working perfectly until we went
yeah,
live,
till
wasn't it? I'm
went
very
live.
sorry.
So I don't know whether it's the live
No,
connection
I
or
think
the. All right, it stopped flashing.
just momentarily. It's just whilst I'm wiggling it around. So very sorry to cut you off as a.
Hello, Michael. We're just sorting out some technical issues here.
Yeah. Hello.
Um, so, while Jack sorts his camera out, it was an interesting, it was a nice session. They cajoled a shipwright into taking them into the marsh to meet the witch, which they did, and the witch wasn't all that was anticipated. She had the powers to do what they wanted to do, but she also turned out to be a potential ally in their greater fight. So it was a very nice sort of role play session. Um, and they now have to delve down into some sunken caves. They know there's some marrow there, some cursed mermaid or mer folk, to seek out an item that she needs to cast the magics to help them out. So that was it was a good fun session. Lots of plot got out, and we left it not on a massive cliffhanger, but on a now you're going to descend down into the flooded caverns. So that's going to be nice going straight into that next next session, which is in 2 weeks' time. Then tonight we've got the Icebreakers, of which Jack is going to be playing in. So we've got Jack, we've got Michael, who's in chat at the moment. We've got Sarah that's joined us for the very first time, which is going to be absolutely brilliant. Sarah was on Improv, which we might have a quick chat about in a moment. And then we have James and Joe, and we have Emma as well. I think that is everybody in that one, isn't it?
It is indeed, yeah.
Players.
A lot of us, but yes.
Haven't missed anybody out. And it kind of ended on quite a big cliffhanger, really, last session. Do you want to have a quick chat about that first?
Yeah. So I think like I was saying to you before, this it's it's a very good example. You know, we've spoken in the past about the difference between sort of homebrew and pre-written campaigns, and I think the session last time was a very good example of kind of how a homebrew is, because we spent most of the time just sort of teleporting around all of Exandria, and it was a super fun session, as it always is. But that sort of, it was a very good example because, like I said, just because of that level of exploration that you have, where there isn't necessarily one set goal, lots of sort of I don't want to necessarily call it admin, but lots of little bits to do. But going into a little bit of detail, we have one of our characters is subtly trying to lead a revolution against the Empire. So set in the world of Exandria, trying to set up a little bit of a revolution there. Got towards the end of the session and we found the tavern where sort of the headquarters are, so to speak. One thing led to another. We went down a sewer to speak to people with a little bit more privacy, and top end of that sewer we found a potential suitor that looks like they might be sort of being escorted away from escorted away by the Crown's Guard. We've gone up. One of our players has gone up, and by all accounts, I think they have left the session now. But they have sort of gone up on almost a crusade, so to speak. They said there's a bit of a cliffhanger now in terms of what's happening with this potential hostage and all the rest of it. So yeah, it's very exciting. It's going to happen in an hour.
So Adrian, who had to step away from the campaign, he sort of works really hard, and he finds kind of playing late into the evening tiring rather than tiresome. That is two very big different things, and it was causing him excess fatigue, so we will miss him.
Yeah, definitely.
Adrian, though, was in last night's game and is continuing with that. I think it's 2 games back to back, which was, he didn't want to leave, but because he made the decision he wanted to leave, he wanted to do it in a big style, so hence that final sort of encounter. And as the dust settles tonight from that explosion, the rest of the icebreakers will be wondering what on earth is about to occur, and they will find out in roughly 50 minutes, because that is our game. I'm very excited for it, as usual. Icebreakers is one of the more powerful games that I run, or as in the characters are super optimized, or rather they've got some I don't think the characters are super optimized. I think I've just been very generous with magical items.
You have,
but that was a conscious thing. I wanted it to be sort of a little bit overpowered. I wanted you to feel like heroes, like Vox Machina or Mighty Nine or whatever, and hopefully it's got that larger than life sort of feel to it.
Yes, yeah. I think the character that I play in this session is probably my favourite character to play, for a large number of reasons. Yeah.
And I have to do a shout out to M as well, especially. I've known M for a very long time. I met them in the shop, and I think our paths must have crossed on the LARPing scene as well. But they do the most awesome notes that I've ever seen. They sketch out sort of little sort of bits of encounters almost in a cartoon-esque style, and it's
all
just
in character as well.
Yeah,
perfect.
It's a delight to see that back. I don't know whether M catches the 6 o'clock club, but it's a big shout out. It's a delight to kind of see those. It gives me a good little chuckle at the end of the game to see kind of the cooperative storytelling that we're all telling kind of come alive in picture. So I always look forward to those as well. Okay, so I mean, we can have a quick chat about improv if you like.
Yeah, absolutely.
you very generously volunteered or guinea pigged to do this. The actual play that we ran on Sunday night, but you unfortunately, because of time constraints, you couldn't join us on Monday to have a chat about it. So
No.
totally understandable. But if you've got any thoughts or sort of comments, I'd very much like to hear them before we move on to, I think it was your question in Discord about new games, new players.
Yes. So yeah, sure. I mean, I can start with improv,
Yeah,
and I hope you take this as a compliment. But I think you can very much tell that the mechanics and stuff have come from your brain, because it's purely focused just on sort of the narrative itself and telling the story. I think, and again, I hope it's so simple to pick up the rules. You know, you've got a pool of dice that you spread out over sort of three statistics. And the whole idea is that yes, those dice are there, and we can do some very stuff like changing the narrative, which is kind of a little bit sort of reminiscent of Blades of the Dark. But ultimately, it's the focus more is just on storytelling. So mechanically, yeah, it was super simple to pick up. I really just had a quick think about it, maybe a couple of hours before we actually sat down at 8 o'clock. Got my head around it. You know, we obviously caught up just before the game, and then I think what it allowed it to do was obviously, like I said, we just tell the story together, and I think it was really easy, and I had a really good time as well. Obviously, we had some great players as well. Yeah, I'd be dead interested in picking it back up again at some point, because it's, like I said, it's all just D6 and very simple to do.
excellent, because we are looking to kind of do it fairly regularly on a Sunday night. We can't do it this Sunday because I mentioned it is my daughter's birthday. So, but yeah, the design of it, I literally wanted it to be, how can we get uh, how can we get people into role playing? How can we, people who don't want to role play, don't know what they're missing? This is me being a zealot. And if you say, "Oh, should we play Dungeons and Dragons?" It's like, "Oh, no, I'm not sure." Oh, why don't you read this rule? I don't want to read that rule book. It's like a lot of people. I mean, there are people that don't want to play a game, and that is absolutely fine. But there are people that like sort of board games, war games, computer games that kind of, I think, that they might be put off by the amount of if you look at the amount of D&D books, like if you bring a friend round and sort of say, oh, look at my role
Yeah,
playing
yeah.
books, and it's like, oh, you've now frozen in
I
place.
have. I didn't want to
No,
interrupt you. I'm
no,
going to reconnect in a minute, but I'm still very much still here.
no, it's fine. And it's like, oh yeah, I'm not going to read all those sort of thing. So the design really was, shall we play a game? Oh yeah, that sounds fun. What game are we going to play? Well, we're going to play kind of like a little bit of a sort of kind of like a murder mystery type
Yeah,
game. Okay, well, what do we need to do? Well, you've got these three areas of expertise. You've got physical, you've got social, and you've got something that doesn't fall into those. It's everything else, and it's like, well, I understand that. So physical is if I'm doing
yeah,
anything physical, social if I'm doing anything social, and if I'm not doing either of those, then it's the other one. Um, okay, and then what are these strange dice? I don't understand these dice. Well, they're
yes,
just dice that randomize. People have got sort of mental blocks. It's like, well, these are D6s. I understand D6s.
absolutely.
So you just then don't even have to add your dice up. There's no
Yes,
match. You don't need to add your dice up even.
yeah,
That was a mechanic that I decided. You just roll the dice, and unlike Blades in the Dark, which I love, I do love. It wasn't like, oh, I don't like that mechanic. But Blades in the Dark is a high space game, and it thrives on the crews, the players, the characters not necessarily succeeding,
yeah,
or rather they succeed, but there's a complication. Because let's face it, in all heist movies, it'd be very dull within the first like 20 minutes. There's no complications. They come up with a plan, they go
just
in,
do
they
it.
steal the stuff, and it's like, well, we've done it, you know. So that's the design of Blades in the Dark, and it works incredibly well for that kind of feel of it. But I kind of wanted there be to no limits, just story.
Yeah.
But I did realise that there needs to be some kind of guidance, and people like variance and rolling dice, chance of
Mm.
success and chance of failure. So um, we I wanted to include those in there as well.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, and you can feel, you can definitely sort of feel that, because like, I think, like you said, that there's always something close in my heart for not necessarily optimization, but going to the devil of the detail, and that's one of the main reasons why I've been very interested in Pathfinder, because the next like level of D&D is one thing, Pathfinder takes you up to sort of level 2, but I can also I appreciate the simplicity of certain things. Like I said, with improv, I really enjoyed just how easy it was to pick up, and just how the dice are just complementing telling a story rather than anything above that.
if you are curious about what we're talking about, it was a kind of one-shot role play, actual play that we played, heavily leaning into paranoia at the start of the game, but then sort of branching out into something else. And all of the players played characters that were imps, newly spawned, and trying to climb up the ladder of power in the hells. Um, as I said, it felt very much more like a session zero. I don't know whether you watched the comments on the 6 o'clock show on Monday, but I was kind of saying I would have liked it to be more improv-y. But I felt for the very first one, it was kind of setting the scene of the hells and
Yeah,
what can happen, rather than just throwing it out there, not just for the players but also for the audience to sort of have a gist of what on earth all of this is about. Because random madness and chaos is always fun, but if the viewers are not aware of the meaning behind it, it can become a little bit sort of lost, really.
yeah, definitely.
And I really thought that yourself, Sarah and Michael, really helped set that scene.
Yeah, yeah,
Sorry, it
it
was
was really
Michael
good.
and it was Jocelyn, not
Jocelyn,
Sarah. Sarah
yes,
was in Blades in the Dark. So we will be doing more. It'd be quite nice to have a revolving sort of cast, and people can sort of jump in and jump out. And there will be sort of one shots. I don't really foresee there being any kind of real character advancement as such in them. That isn't it. But I was fascinated to read in the I think it's in the Monster Manual rather than the DM's Guide, that Asmodeus really he lords it over the multiverse, not just the planes but the multiverse. So I really like the idea of um, the imps being able to go anywhere or
yeah,
anywhen. And I don't know whether I kind of mentioned it on stream or whether it was a chat afterwards, but you know, even the kind of madness of having them arrive in Wizards of the Coast's office in Seattle and cause mayhem there.
that would be
Uh,
fun.
I
That'd be
mean,
very fun.
there's all sorts of fun things that we can do, and hopefully with audience participation as well,
Yeah,
they can come up with some really cool ideas. But I'm really pleased that you enjoyed it, and a big thanks again, because you didn't have much of a brief on it other than it's called improv, and I think you're going to be playing an imp. Beyond that, we'll see where it goes.
yeah, but I think that's probably, like I said, that's probably a testament just to sort of how easy it was to pick up. Yes, it wasn't too much of a brief, but the fact that we managed just to pick up and roll with it probably just is a good example of how easy the system is.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, I'll put the link to that one in the comment section below if anybody doesn't know how to navigate YouTube or whatever, and you'll be able to find it fairly easily from clicking on the link in the comment section to this 6 o'clock club. Okay then, so we'll move quickly across to your question then, and
Yes.
this is something
Yeah.
close to home because it's something that you really are going to actually do.
It is. I did think this would be just a good topic to cover in this, but yes, I actually do need some advice. So one of my close friends has just asked for me if I can run a game for some players, so a D&D game, I should say. Sorry. None of the players have played before. Some have, some interest in fantasy and maybe reading or playing sort of sim games like Diablo or Baldur's Gate. Some have no interest in that kind of thing. So I wanted to, I guess, pick your brains.
Mhm.
How would you run for players that have never played before with a kind of a mixed interest in fantasy and non-fantasy, maybe things like levels and
We
you
have,
could sit down and say 3 hours.
yeah.
It could feel like a while. So, yeah, what tips, advice would you give to DMing a session for new players?
So, I mean, I suppose the first question is, it's not a question, it's kind of a statement, really. Homebrew or pre-produced adventure. If I was doing it, I would do homebrew because I could tailor it a little bit more to the group, especially with them not having played before. Um, then the next question would be, do they like battles? Are they going to like rolling dice and doing combat, or are they going to
Mm.
like doing lots of role playing? I mean, most games tend to be a little bit of this and a little bit of that and a little bit of exploration as well. And you can magnify the things they're more interested in. Um, but I would, for new players, have all of that in anyway, just so they can get a little bit
Yeah.
taste of each of them. Um, so, in terms of sort of, it depends very much on how long are you planning it. If this was like a 3 hour session, or is it like a full sort of daytime kind of get together with pizzas and beers and all of that kind of stuff. But assuming it's kind of quite a sort of straightforward 3 hour session.
Yeah, this one somewhere between 2 to 3 hours because I figured I would love like a long session like that, but I think my intention would be to do something small at first just to gauge how
Yeah,
they are with it, and then if they love it, then I'd happily come back and do maybe a longer session another
yeah.
time.
So, I mean, with that sort of time frame, I think what would be important first and foremost is characters. Um, if they are comfortable of designing their own characters, that's absolutely fine. If they're not, then obviously going down the pre-gen route is definitely the best way. Um, and having a kind of not a sit down session zero, but certainly going. Um, these are kind of your options. Do you want to be slinging spells? Do you want to be fighting toe to toe? Do you want to be creeping around in the shadows? I.e., are you going to be a wizard, a fighter, a cleric, or a rogue or a thief, sort of thing, really?
Yeah.
And get a feel for that. How many players are there?
Four
Yeah, yeah. So
four players.
an
Yeah.
ideal sort of number, and getting a little bit of mix. I wouldn't go particularly too complex. Um, uh, I would perhaps start at level one,
Mm.
just so that because they're brand new players, they can feel what it's like. But I would remove the rule about instant death with
Yeah.
criticals.
Yes, yeah, that's a good point.
Um, you know, so that if they do get unlucky with a bad roll against them, it doesn't sort of take them straight out of the game.
Yeah.
Um, but the second reason for that is that after the sort of 2 or 3 hours, they can level up as well at the end of the game, and that is one of the big pluses for fifth ed. Is oh wow, yeah, we've got experience, we've
Mm.
leveled up, we've now doubled our hit points or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
I mean, if you wanted to have them a little bit more meaty, starting at level two is not a problem, and then they've got all of the crazy decisions of subclasses and the like
Mm.
when they do level up. Um, but I would choose I would choose an encounter, a combat encounter that explains a lot of the rules. So for instance, darkness is one of the crazy rooms in there, but it's an important one. So I would have them descending down somewhere, whether it's a cellar or sewers or into a cave system. Very Elden Ring, if you kind of think of
Yeah,
those
yeah,
early sort of encounters where you're sort of creeping forward and there's the demi-humans or the wolves that just kind of you can't see them. Um, they can start considering about sort of old school stuff like have we got any lights or whatever. They might be playing characters with dark vision, so it might not be as troublesome, but remind them that dark vision doesn't allow them to see in dark. It just turns darkness into dim light.
yeah, yeah.
And that allows them to be a little bit more sort of tactical as well, and have some thoughts about that. Um, um, then with all of that, there'll be the story hook, or you could start them in the middle of it. I've done this quite a lot,
Okay.
um, which instead of starting them into a tavern, um, and that can eat into your 2 hours or 3 hours quite a lot, which
Yeah,
is, oh, right, you all meet each other for the first time and describe each other and whatever. You can kind of do all of that potentially off scene if you want. Say,
yeah,
right, you're an adventuring group, you've been hired for your first task, you have fought your way down into these caverns, and I would run it almost as if they've done the semi-boring part of getting the party together and everything else, and throw them straight into the action. Starting them off maybe in a cavern, maybe it's a rescue mission, so that they've got someone to rescue, but also that's where the role playing can come from.
yeah, yeah. That's a good
Um,
idea.
and then literally have like the next chamber, they are ready and they are prepared. The next chamber is where the guards are, or whatever. They've perhaps got the jump on them. Then you can give them a surprise round, so you can explain the mechanics of combat to them
Without the danger.
without the
Yeah,
danger.
yeah,
To
makes
take
sense.
down a couple of the guards, and the guards can be humans, or you can have them as sort of goblins, kobolds, or um, uh, orcs in fifth ed are quite meaty at level one.
Yes, they are.
1d12 plus some damage, but it means that they're straight into the action. They've got the jump on these guards, which means they're not kind of spending a lot of time discussing how they're going to attack these guards. It's just no, now's the time. You have your window of opportunity. These are the bad guys. These are the ones you need to take out. You can describe the battle for them. Once they've done that, they venture further in. Maybe one of the guards has got a key that they
Yeah,
need to tell the GM that they're looking for, because otherwise they can't get through the sort of next door or whatever. And then I would do almost a reversal. They kind of unlock the door, sort of go in, rescue the person. So the
yeah,
next encounter would be a conversation. Um, you could do the quite obvious and classic that the person they're rescuing isn't particularly nice and is a bit of a pain, or you can have them as badly injured. So maybe
mm,
if you've got a healer in your party, or you gave them some
potions and stuff.
potions, they can administer, but they're using their resources on that.
Mm,
But by the reversal, I mean as they're on the way out, which they now know the way because they've came down, the big bad is returning back to the base. So you've basically got four encounters there. You've got
yeah,
the guards, you've got the door getting through that, you've got healing the captive that they need to free, um, and then you've got the final fight on the way out with the big bad, whether that is a monstrous bad, or
or whatever.
um, sort of a mage that was going to sort of do some diabolic ritual with the captive or whatever. But it's kind of a step by step. The first step is to show them how combat works. Then they've got a problem that they need to resolve getting through the door, or maybe
Yeah.
lowering a drawbridge or operating.
Something that plays around with the
Yeah,
mechanics a
yeah,
little bit.
that's
Yeah.
right. And then they've got the role-playing aspect with the captive. I mean, maybe maybe they're a noble and he doesn't want to inherit, so he will offer to pay them coins to smuggle him away, and they have to make a decision whether they're going to return him to his family that's hired him, or um, take
Yeah.
him somewhere else. Maybe he got captured when he was running away, for instance. There's a whole host, but there's basically social interaction there and dilemmas for them to have to do. And then, as I say, you've got the slightly bigger fight that they've got free realm in
Yeah.
to do at the end, really. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, sort of step by step building up the rules with brand new players, I think, is the easiest, and perhaps starting them in the thick of it is good, because you've got a little bit of a time constraint, and with everybody learning the rules as well, having an hour session in the tavern um,
Yes.
will cut into that time of actual gameplay. I love role playing. I love conversations in taverns. Um,
Yes. Well, yes, definitely. Yeah.
but um, but if you've got an agenda of showing them how the rules is
Yeah.
and showing them a good time, and genuinely, enthuse, be a fan of them and their successes, because um, that carries over to them when they do something really
Definitely.
cool, because they need to know, you rolled a critical hit.
You're doing it.
That's a
Yeah.
really cool thing to do. Well done, sort of thing, really. Um,
Is there anything that you would look to avoid with new players? I know because obviously you mentioned and it definitely makes sense to, like I said, just ignore the sort of instant death.
yeah.
Are there any other things like that with potentially new players that you would look to maybe not include, or stuff that you do necessarily with new players that you do with veteran players?
Um, I wouldn't give them the opportunity um, to sort of discuss things in a circular argument.
Mm.
You kind of want them to get, every encounter you want is to be solid for a purpose and fairly straightforward to understand. For instance, that's what I said. Make sure that they know the bad guys are the bad guys.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
No. Like sort of morally grey
yeah,
area
yeah,
or
yeah.
anything like that.
So very very black and white. I would definitely go for, and therefore there's no need for discussion. Firstly, that takes the dilemma away from them, which is good
Mhm.
with more experienced players.
Yeah.
Um, but with new players, I'm guessing they would very much prefer to focus on how does the game play, what are we
Yeah.
doing, and I mean you can have a dilemma, as I said, as the social encounter, but not a dilemma in should we fight these people, because you actually want to show them how combat works. So fundamentally, you want to fight these people. These are the bad guys. These are the people that you've been sent to battle. Um, and it depends on the type of players you've got. They might want to be anti-heroes, so they could be, these are the good guys that you've been sent to fight.
Yeah.
But certainly what I would do is make sure that they're all on the same page in terms of working together as a group as well.
Definitely.
Initially, you can bring in more sort of complex uh,
Like
sort of,
inter-party conflicts and
yeah,
stuff.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
At another time, you don't want. I mean, I'm assuming you want everybody to go away going, "That was awesome."
Yes. Yeah.
And
Yes.
if one player feels like they they were playing a character that shouldn't fit with the group, they would go out with a different sense to the others. So it's a good idea to have them all pushing in the same direction, certainly initially anyway, for
Yeah.
new players. I mean, yeah, you're an experienced player. I'm fairly certain you have you actually run anything before, or would this be your first time?
No. So I DM fairly frequently. This
Yeah,
is just
yeah,
this is just the first time. It would be. I think this would be the second time that I've done it with brand new players. The first time was ages ago,
yeah,
years and years ago, and it was just what I wanted to do was just keep it quite contained. I think
yeah,
one of the things that I enjoy about D&D, I suppose, is the open worldness of it. But I think what I think the story that I literally had was that they were in almost just like an insane asylum, and they just had to go. They were at the top floor, and they had to make their way down and make their way. So you'd go, they'll go down from
yeah,
floor 5 to floor 4. Something was happening in this room, then down and then down and down until they got out. Because I enjoyed, especially with new players, just keeping them in sort of like a contained area rather than just saying, right, this is big world
yeah,
that you can do what you want to do. Right, off you go. What do you want to do? Because I think that could, in my head, I thought that could be a little bit daunting to new players, whether you just got any option that you want to do, which is great for, it's one of the things that I love. But that's the only time I've run something very similar before,
yeah,
and everyone did thoroughly enjoy it. But I also just wanted to, like I said, just pick your brains for
yeah,
maybe. I think I definitely like the idea of just chucking them in just halfway through the encounter, so to speak, rather than, like I said, just getting together in a tavern and all the rest of it. I think throwing them in there and making sure that we're breaking down those little pieces is a very good idea.
yeah. And as I say, think about the combat, basically the encounter. Think about um, what you can put in there that will show them some of the rules of play, basically. Um, so, for instance, if you wanted to be particularly not nasty, but um, pack tactics is a terrible thing, So if you're using halflings, or I think giant rats have it as well, that they can feel fairly heroic right at the start, kind of, because they've got such low hit points, the creatures, and it's like, hey, we're doing it. But as soon as one or two, well, as soon as two or three start gathering around them, they suddenly get advantage on their attacks to hit, and that can be quite scary.
Deadly, yeah.
So you can play up to that. I'm not saying punish them, but it's a good learning curve of, oh, one on one these are great and really easy, and suddenly when there's two of them, they say,
Yeah.
well, these have got a special skill called, pack tactics. So it's pretty much like teaching someone how to play magic.
Yes. Yeah.
These are the rules, and then all of these things break those rules and
Yes.
do additional things. But yeah, I would certainly think, not to overwhelm them. A couple of combat encounters, couple of perhaps exploration-y type things. People like to find treasure. That's
Yeah.
always a big.
I still do after playing for so
Yeah,
long.
yeah. No, no.
Yeah. Love a magic
Yeah, yeah,
item.
yeah, yeah. Absolutely. So I would definitely sort of throw, um, you know, one or two of those kind of things in, and some coin, and all of the things that we really enjoy with fifth ed. Um, and I think they'll be going, especially if you level them up,
Yeah.
or basically say, well, congratulations, you've got great enough experience to level up to level 2. If they want to carry on with these
Yeah.
characters, they can. Um, they've got something to look forward to, as well as the sort of story, and you can put some plot hooks in as well.
Mm.
Um, whether if this wasn't going to be a one shot, then I would seed all sorts of things in there to
Yes.
give
Yeah.
them,
Definitely.
after this very initial introduction that is fairly linear.
Mm.
But it's designed to be linear, so you can show them the rules and how the game plays.
Yeah.
Um, they finally defeat the big bad that has returned to their hideout. They emerge out of that hideout, and it's again that scene in Elden Ring when you sort of come up from the things, you lift that door up, and then suddenly the
The
world is
light hits you.
yeah, it's there,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
well, you've arrived. It is completely up to you now what you want to do, and
Yeah.
that can be quite a exciting buzz as well.
Yes. No, thank you. Generally, I think there's a lot of things from that I can probably take away. I think I'm doing it in a couple of weeks.
Yeah,
So I can always let you know how I got on with
yeah,
it
yeah. No,
once I've done
please
it.
come back and let us know. Uh, I'm always learning. You know, what I've suggested here is perhaps right for some GMs, some storytellers, some players, and can be completely wrong for others. That there are groups that love to spend all of their time just role playing. Whether they're in their secret hideout in a tavern, in a gambling den, and there's nothing wrong with that.
No, absolutely not. No.
What the real skill of a GM is having empathy, reading a table, and understanding the vibe of what the style of game and the game that they want. And I mean, obviously, it helps if you have open conversations with your players.
Yes.
But as I've said before, um, you can have a group of players that love one thing, and they've all had if they're really like their intense role playing, and they've all had a very bad week at work, and what they really want to do is hit.
Just want to hit some stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
no,
No,
absolutely.
I get that a lot, especially in sometimes I think I can sit down and I just want to hit some stuff tonight.
Yeah,
It's been a bad day or whatever, but other times I just want to sit in the tavern and play rollies.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I think the session that we're playing tonight is very good at doing both.
yeah, yeah.
So
No,
yeah.
I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, I mean that's key. Make sure that this isn't particularly advice for a new players or whatever, but kind of having a feel for what people want from the game, that particular game at that moment in time is helpful. It certainly greases it. If everybody is pushing, as I say, in the right direction, mood wise, then everybody's going to have fun around the table.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, thank you very much for that
No,
question.
thank you.
We are coming up to about 1:45 now, and 15 minutes away from icebreakers, so I'm very much guessing that it is perhaps time to say goodbye to everybody in chat, anybody who's watching this on sort of catch up. If you do get a chance, please give us a subscribe and a like. I'll pop the improv link of the game that we mentioned previously. I think the next one will be coming up a week on Sunday, so that should be the 12th of March at 8 o'clock. So you can check out the previous video and the chat that we had about it on Monday. But for now, thank you very much, everybody, and it is a goodbye from me and goodbye from Jack. Take care, stay safe, everybody. We'll catch you hopefully tomorrow for the 6 o'clock club again.